Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B. Happy Sunday. This is Monica Pearson. Glad you joined me today. If you love theater, you're going to love my show today. Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater. Their cast and the director of the play American Buffalo, opening February 9th at the Southwest Arts Center. They're here. And I've got some tickets to give away to help you start your Valentine's weekend off right to see Drew Hill and Avant. That's coming up here on my show, so stick with me. Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B. This is Monica Pearson. I'm so happy today to be able to introduce you to a play, the characters, and of course the director. The American Buffalo play by David Mamet is going to open at the Southwest Arts Center on February 9th and run through March the 6th. I have to be upfront with you and let you know that I was one of the founding board members of True Colors Theater Company and now serve on the board. So that's truth in advertising. But I'm so excited to have the cast and also to have the director, Mr. John Dillon, is here. John, first off, let's talk about what is the plot about in American Buffalo, other than three guys trying to steal some coins.
And specifically an American Buffalo nickel. And they are about the worst planning criminals you could imagine. They are really pretty funny about this. And this coin has been bought by a guy who came into the junk shop, which is the setting of the play. And the owner of the shop sees how much money this guy pays for this coin and decides they should go follow him and break into his apartment and steal what they assume is going to be his big coin collection. So they set off. But it's really about these three guys who are endangered species. These are street guys in Chicago in the mid-70s at the very time when the whole area is turning upgraded. It's becoming Yuppieville in Chicago. And these three petty criminals, losers, are feeling like their neighborhood is going away. So this is kind of their way of reestablishing their presence in the community in a way. And they talk a lot about business because the play is a lot about the American business ethos. And do you put friendship in front of business, or is business override friendship when it's down to the bone?
Now, you picked three wonderful actors, and we've got Neil Gant, who plays Teach, Garrett Gray, who is Bob, and G. Valmont Thomas, who is Don. How did you decide that each of these young men was perfect? Particularly, I think, because Don well, Bob owns the place, right?
Don does.
Don owns the place. So what was it about G. Valmont that you said, G. Val's good for this?
We're both from Seattle. I'm a Seattle-based director, although this is my 10th play directing in Atlanta.
You did Race?
That's right.
Which was a huge success.
That was very exciting to do, and I worked a lot of Georgia Shakespeare and the Alliance. And G. Val and I had worked together many times in Seattle. And when I reread the play, I thought, he's just perfect for this. You know, he's got that sense of loyalty, but he's also going to be able to get the audience to understand his desperation as a shop owner. Neil Gant and I had worked together on Race, where he won the Best Actor Award in town for that, and also we'd worked together at the Georgia Shakespeare Festival, and I knew he had the kind of energy because Teach is one fierce guy whose desperation really ramps up his activity. For the young boy, Bob, I didn't know the right actor in Atlanta, so working with Jodie Feldman as our casting director over at the Alliance, I auditioned all kinds of talented young actors in Alliance, and one really stood out, and that was Garrett Gray.
Now, the play is one that you're very familiar with, but what I was surprised to learn about you is that David Mamet actually dedicated a play to you.
He did. We met up in the mid-'70s, around 78, I think, through a mutual friend. He wanted to revise an early play of his, which really needed a lot of work. And I loved the play, and I said, sure, let's work on it. And we worked on it together for over 2 years, and it covered the time when American Buffalo had just closed on Broadway to the time when he wrote his first screenplay and moved out to Hollywood. In fact, our last meeting on this play, Lake Boat, was in his rented apartment. He'd rented it from an actor who was out of town, a guy named Robin Williams. So I got to spend the day hanging out in Robin Williams' apartment. Anyway, so this was right after American Buffalo had put him on the map after its Broadway run. So I was able to ask him lots and lots of questions about how he came to write this play. And he told me that he loved to just cruise around Chicago, his hometown, and one day he saw this junk shop, and who can resist going into a junk shop, you know? So he went in and he saw something that really excited him. The remnants of a poker game that had been played the night before. David loves poker. He loves poker almost as much as he likes writing plays. So he tried to get these guys to let him into the game, and they kept on saying no. They didn't want some young college kid, you know, in their poker game. And then one day he didn't show up, and they asked him, "Where were you yesterday?" He said, "Oh, I have a teaching job down at Pontiac Correctional Institute in Pontiac, Illinois." And a couple of guys went, "Hey, I've been in Pontiac." Not to teach. So they thought, well, if he's gone to Pontiac, he's an okay guy. So they invited him in, but he got a nickname at the poker game, and the name was Teach. And that is the character that Neil plays. And he's the one who's really starts the action of planning this break-in.
Now, Kenny Leon told me, Kenny Leon of True Colors Theater Company, that he feels he owes a great deal to you for a number of reasons. But the first is you gave him his first directing job outside the city of Atlanta.
Right. I had a call from the National Service Organization of the theater, and they said, we've got this terrific, talented actor who's been doing a lot more directing in Atlanta, but he wants to break out. He wants to play for a larger audience, and we're trying to find theaters that might be willing to take him on. And they knew that I had done a lot of colorblind casting. I had at that time, at least, the most multiracial company in the country. So they called me, and so Kenny and I talked, and I just really loved his energy and his sharpness of mind and his passion. So I said, well, come to Milwaukee and bring your earmuffs. And oh boy, watching him that first winter when he was directing in Milwaukee, but he hung in there and produced a great show, something called Raisin in the Sun, that of course won him a Tony Award many years later when he directed it on Broadway.
And that's the one thing Kenny said about you, is that you knew diversity before diversity was cool. Where did that come from?
I was sitting in one of the country's largest Shakespeare theaters watching a Shakespeare history play, and I was sitting next to an African-American family and these two adorable young boys watching the stage. And now this is a big history play. It's a big theater, so there were 40 actors on stage, and not one of them was his color, those boys' color. And I thought, the white kids in this audience are going to go home and play king and queen, but will these kids? And it made me so angry that when I went back to my own theater, I said, we've got to ramp it up. I mean, we'd always been open and accessible, but this isn't enough. And so I realized that the key to building a company wasn't to run to all my other white artistic directors and say, know any black people who could come and act for us? It was to ask the African-American and other actors of color that I knew, who are other actors we should recruit? We'll talk to them. Let's convince them that this is a place that they would want to come, as opposed to let's step down from on high and say, we're going to give you the chance to act at our theater. And that led to asking these same actors about who are the designers. And then let's mix it up. Let's have them play actors of their own ethnicity. Let's have them play Shakespeare. Let's just have it as a company. And one of the things that made that easy was that we had a resident company. So when the audience came to see a show, they weren't like, oh my goodness, Hamlet's being played by a black actor. It was, what is Neil Gant doing this week? What is G. Val Thomas doing this week? They got to know them as people rather than as the color of their skin. It was first who they were as people. And that's what really made it click with the community. They were very, very accepting.
Oh, that's a great story, and I wish more theater companies would do that. Well, then, of course, the next thing I have to ask. You don't act. You just direct.
Absolutely, man. I'm not sitting there being jealous like, boy, I wish I could do his role. And I think that makes me a better director, because I'm not wanting to tell them, well, this is a better way to do it. I'm there helping them get as far as they can get to realize the fullness of the character.
And I have to say, John, I was also surprised to learn you have a hamburger named for you in a Baltimore restaurant.
That's right.
How? Now, come on.
I don't know. I get this message from a friend who's in Baltimore, and he said, I went to this restaurant called, The Arrogant Director. That was the name of the restaurant, The Arrogant Director. And he said, I opened the menu, and I was, and the Reuben sandwich was named after my friend Renee, and this sandwich was named after this person, and at the top of the menu there was the John Dillon burger. And I went, wow. So, and he told the waiter, hey, I know John Dillon. Can I have a menu so I can mail it to him? And they said no. So he stole the menu and sent it to me. But I never made it to Baltimore before the restaurant closed. I guess arrogant director's not the best name for a restaurant.
Oh. So back to the play. What is it the viewer, the listener can take away from this play? What is it you want them to see through the characters?
You know, we've had a number of wonderful plays about business, Death of a Salesman, of course, being the most famous. By the way, did you know that the first all-black production of Death of a Salesman was produced in Atlanta?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, back in the 60s. Anyway, here's a way of looking at business from a different perspective. That is, 3 petty criminals in a junk shop. That's not the kind of world you usually get to enter when you go to the theater. So he's created these really interesting characters that you pass on the street, but you never talk to. And then he really puts his finger on the nerve of the tension between business ethics and the ethics of friendship. And what happens when they clash. And David's, at the key of every play of David's is a betrayal. And in this play, there are 2 whoppers. Ooh. And that really mixes things up and keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Well, we're going to talk some more about the play. Also, you're going to meet the 3 actors next. And we're going to give you a scene from the play that we've had to clean up. I need to say this right now. This is not a play you take your child to, unless that child is at least 16. The language is pretty brutal, but it's not just for brutality's sake. There's a real reason for it. You're listening to Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B, and if you're the 14th caller, I'm going to help you get your Valentine's weekend started off right. Why? Because on Friday, February 12th at the Fox Theater Egyptian Ballroom, we've got tickets to see Drew Hill and Avant. It's the 10th annual Valentine's weekend celebration for lovers. So be caller number 4 at 404-741-0104, and I'm sending you out Friday night. Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B. This is Monica Pearson, and I'm so happy to have the cast and the director from American Buffalo, a play by David Mamet. It's directed by John Dillon. It will be at the Fulton County Southwest Arts Center Performance Theater from February 9th through March 6th. It's a presentation by True Colors Theater. Okay. I've got to ask my actors, how do you not take these characters home? How do you not become them? I'm going to start with G-Val.
Well, when I'm teaching, I always say what we're trying to do is we're looking for a different solar system, if you will, a different planet. So when you have a set and a stage and people around you, that is the character's planet. And so the character needs you to live in that world, but you don't need the character to live in your own world. So you only really need that character when you're there. And if you build it that way, then you won't make the mistake of going on stage instead of your character. And your character won't make the mistake of coming into your world unless you ask it.
So you're telling me you never took a character home?
No, I'm not telling you
that. That's not what he's saying.
I'm saying that you're set up to try and do that. Now, when I was playing, and I can say this here because we're not in the theater, when I was playing the Scottish King Macbeth, I played it for 158 performances at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And a lot of my friends were worried about me by the end of that run. They said, man, you got more sullen. You said you got more I was introspective, and I was a lot meaner. But that's just every night I went on stage and died. I mean, every night at the beginning of the play, I would say, okay, by the end of this play, I'm dead. And that's what I'd have to go into. I mean, 158 times in a year, it can get to you. So
Neil, have you ever had that problem?
Yeah, I think so. I think every actor, you can't live in the world of a character for as long as actors live in it, at least theater actors, without taking a little bit with you. I had the pleasure of doing Glenn Ross at the Alliance Theater about 7 or 8 years ago. And before that show, another Mamet piece that has very colorful language. Before that show, I didn't use very colorful language in my day-to-day outside of the theater. After that show, however, you might find a few curse words that have enter my speech over the last 7 or 8 years or so. But you try as an actor, really, you do. You try to leave it on the stage. You try to respect the character by giving the character what they need while you're performing it on stage, and then you respect yourself by giving yourself what you need outside of the space, and that's letting the character go, because you're not that person, and you have other things in real life to tend to.
Garrett?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the text, like Neil was saying. Sometimes for me, that tends to like hold on to me a little bit more. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine on the phone, like right after rehearsal. I got in the car and I was calling him, and I got really upset, and I was like, da 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 da, profane language, profane language, profane language. And they're like, Garrett, do you realize like all the words that just came out of your mouth were not appropriate? I was like, really? and sometimes like I have like that like hour or two right after rehearsal, if it's really emotional, I'll be into it, but like after that you can't. You gotta go watch some Bob's Burgers or something and get it off you, because it's too much. It's too much to be taking that home. Just let it go.
And I was talking to you earlier, my wonderful director, John Dillon. You actually had an actress who really couldn't get out of her role.
I ran into her one night after she'd been on Broadway, and I saw her in one of these little alleys between two theaters, and she just looked distraught, and she'd been crying. And I said, "What happened? What happened?" And she said, "Oh, I was assaulted and I was raped." I went, "Oh my God! Well, we've got to get you to the police. How did this happen?" She said, "Well, this one person held me down, and the other person jumped on top of me, and he raped me." And I said, "And then what happened?" He said, "Well, then it was a curtain call." And I realized she couldn't separate the two. And actors obviously learn how to learn lines and how to separate themselves from the characters. Fortunately, she got out of the business, because that obviously was bad business for her. But I think one of the reasons why Mamet sticks with actors after rehearsal is, yes, the language is colorful, but it's the rhythm of the language. It's the poetry of the language. It's his odd way of leaving certain words out or adding words that shouldn't be there that just make you want to talk that way. So I think it's like the same thing if you all put on a particular piece of clothing that makes you feel really sexy or really strong or really handsome. That's the same thing these actors are going through, and the best way to get out of it is to get those clothes off and to get that character out of your mind.
Why should someone see this play?
I think it's relevant right now. Some of the themes that we approach in the show are about extinction, the extinction of neighborhoods, the extinction of a particular kind of person, extinction of, black guys. And so just this neighborhood passing sort of into myth. I mean, we all kind of remember the 70s. We all remember the sort of hype nature, the bell bottoms, the music, the hair, the theater. It was all there, but it's gone now. You look outside and there's really nothing of that left physically, So it is kind of a sort of a passing of a timepiece that I think people can really connect to and see a little bit of themselves or a little bit of their own story in it as well.
And I think as far as friendship goes, I think there's a lot about friendship in the play that a lot of people can take with them and take a little bit more compassion with them as they leave the theater. So I think the characters, while they get a little crazy when all is said and done, these are pretty good friendships. I mean, they're pretty strong friendships, I should say. Whether good or not, that'll be up to you.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to support different types of theater in the Atlanta area. Down here, we have like a lot of musical theater in Atlanta all the time. Everybody's singing and dancing, and sometimes it's good to go to a show and just actually listen to the text and listen to what a playwright is trying to say that isn't underscored with music.
And also it's a way to peek into a world that we aren't normally allowed to look into. The life of these three petty criminals in a junk shop in Chicago in the 70s. I mean, it's so intriguing, and on top of that, it's really funny.
Well, you all stick around, because when we come back, I am going to let each of the actors tell you what their character is truly like. And then in the hour, you're going to hear a scene from the play, which they did sanitize for radio. You're listening to Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B and throwbacks. Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B. And what's better than love? Not much, but a birthday really is kind of neat too. So it's time for my birthday greetings. Nicole Barber Nicole Barbie Harper. Happy birthday. Remy Elisant, Gloria Thornton, E. Dean Cole, Kenneth Barnett, Tad Spencer, and Christopher Moore are celebrating birthdays today. Hello and happy birthday to Georgia House of Representative member D. Dawkins Hagler. And happy birthday to A.J. Lewis, Mary Jessie. And these people were brave enough to put how old they're going to be. Floyd Henderson is 29 today. Eric Ayers is 37. Tony Holmes is 45. Marsha Wade turns 48 today. Stephen Ewing is 53. And Stanley Tyrone Davis is 59. And you all share your birthday with some very famous people. How about Australian actress Portia de Rossi? She's 43 today. Now, you know her as the wife of Ellen DeGeneres, but guess what? She's Elizabeth North on Scandal. And since we're talking about Scandal, Kerry Washington, the star of Scandal, Olivia Pope. She turns 39 today. And by the way, if you're trying to figure out, when are they going to be back on the air? Season 5 starts on February the 11th here on ABC. Minnie Driver, the actress, is 46. And Hello Dolly fame actress Carol Channing is 95. But the music maker you all know from his days as a Mouseketeer, Justin Timberlake, is 35. Here's one of my favorites. So I'm with the cast of American Buffalo. And guys, you all really have, how shall I say it, drama, but there's also some humor in this play.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And that to me is interesting. So I'm going to start out with you, G-Val. Your character is quite something.
Dawn? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. He is quite something.
So tell our listeners, what is it they need to realize and learn from him?
He's a man who, basically, he has the world's or the society's refuse in his shop. It's the things that people throw away, which are valuable to somebody. And he knows that. All the things that he has in there are valuable to someone. Mm-hmm. But somebody comes in here and takes something that's valuable to them, and he realizes it's actually of great value. And he didn't realize himself what value it was.
But during the play, the value of friendship also comes out, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Friendship is, I think friendship is a number one consideration in Don's life. He likes people. He can only trust a few people, and it winds up that those people are criminals and cheats. So, you know, his chooser might be broken.
His chooser might be broken.
But he does like the people that he likes, and he can tell them about themselves, but he forgets about himself sometimes. But he really is he's a giving soul. He's kind of taken Bobby under his wing and acting as an uncle or a father figure to Bobby, because Bobby is well, let's not soft pedal it. Bobby is an ex-junkie. And he's trying to keep him an ex-junkie. Mm-hmm. And so he's trying to teach him responsibility and trying to teach him his business ideas.
So let's go to Bobby, and that is Garrett.
That is me, Garrett Gray. Hi.
So your role, yes. How would you describe your character?
Bobby he's going through a period of transition. He's trying to make some better choices. He's come off of, like G-Val was saying, he's an ex-junkie. He wants to do better for himself, and he sees that Don has it all from what he can see. He has a junk shop, a business, he has friends, and he sees that he can learn a lot from him. So he's trying to make a change, paradigm shift in his life.
And with him, to the person who's sitting in the audience, will they relate to him?
Will they relate to Bobby?
How would they relate to Bobby?
Bobby's relatable in that everybody has their things that hold them down, that they're trying to leave in the past. And I think Bobby is always upbeat and always on to the next thing. He's like, how can I move forward from this? And I think that's what people will take from it, just like his upbeat personality, even though he may get knocked down or he has this really dark past. there's always the future. I think that's what you can get for.
And then Neil Gant, you really are the criminal.
Yeah, teacher.
Teach.
Yeah. He's Teach is probably one of the characters that I've been sort of chomping at the bit to sink my teeth into for a long time, because his language, the way that the character has been written is fun. Just to talk the stuff, say some of the things, let it come out of your mouth. That's half the fun. And then the other half of the fun is just kind of getting into the character and why these words are said. What are the movements that I can provide to the character to give some weight to the words? You know, that's half the fun. That's half the fun of the acting.
So what's it like working with John?
I've worked with John. I've known John for like 6-7 years now. We did some work over at Georgia Shakespeare. And,
what's he bring out in you?
Oh, well, John as a director allows the actor to find their way. At least initially. Directors do different things. Some directors may, kind of really sort of put their hand on your performance and guide you. Other directors will show you the door, but you kind of got to open it a little bit. John has a mixture of both of that. Kind of like he's sort of hands off, because what he does, he casts very well. He goes out and finds actors that can do the work, and then, when we're in the process of rehearsing, he kind of lets you do your thing. He trusts that you will bring something that he expected you to bring, and then he'll be there to heighten those aspects that you as an actor can't see because you're doing it all the time. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. G-Val?
Yes. What John brings to me is patience. I don't have a lot of patience with myself, and I push myself often, and sometimes I push myself to be better than it's possible to be. And John helps me remember that I can, if I take a breath and slow down and maybe talk a little softer.
like John.
I might be able to find my way a little better. That's what he brings to me, but also he does see things that as a character, as an actor, being a character in a play, things you just don't see because you're in it. And that's one of the things I like about John, because it happens when you finally get on the set. Well, it happens all the way through, but it's really cool when you get on the set and he suggests things and you're like, why the heck is he asking me to do that? Mm-hmm. And then you see it happen and you're like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, whatever you want, man.
Now, Garrett, this is your first time working with John. The other two are veterans. What are you learning?
Yeah, I'm learning how to be calm in the rehearsal space, and how to just be patient and let it come.
Are you nervous working with these?
I was but these guys they were really they welcomed me into the space. John and G-Val and Neil, all of them did, and I was a little nervous coming into it at first, but everybody was really welcoming, and it feels like the show is so much based on friendship. That we have to have that bond going into it.
Yeah, it can be really easy to fall into the trap that, I've been doing theater around town for really, the bottom line is going to be us three on stage. And a tremendous amount of trust and respect and honesty will be happening, has to happen on the stage between us at all times. Otherwise, things could go really wrong.
Well, when we come back, I'm going to not only let you hear a scene from the play, but I'm going to tell you how you can get your tickets, because you don't want to miss this. You really don't want to miss this. Now, I do have a gift for those of you who would like to start your Valentine's Day weekend off right. On Friday, February 12th at the Fox Theater in the Egyptian Ballroom, we are having Kiss 104's 10th annual Valentine's Weekend. And we're celebrating with Drew Hill and Avant. If you're the 14th caller at 404-741-0104, we're going to bless you with some tickets. You're listening to Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B and throwbacks. Call me. Kiss 104, Atlanta's best R&B and throwbacks. Don't forget, for the most fun and information in the mornings, listening to the TJMS, the Tom Joining Morning Show, from 6 a.m. until 9. And, of course, they're followed by Sasha the Diva. She's on from 9 until 3. And then the bad boys of the afternoon who get you through that crazy traffic. Art and Roy. Oh, they are so funny. And some of their guests sometimes, like Wani Wabbits and the Wibs. And then, what he really means is it is a fun show that takes takes the pain out of going through afternoon travel. And then you can wrap up your night with Jennifer and Tony Kidd with slow jams to get you in the mood so that when you put your head on the pillow, you will just be knocked out. So spend your whole day here with us on Kiss 104. Well, my guest today is, I've been telling you, American Buffalo, the play by David Mamet, directed by John Dillon. And so I've been teasing you for the last hour and a half, telling you how good the play is. Now the guys are going to do a scene. Now, John, what are we about to hear?
This is a scene late in the play when Teach is going to leave the junk shop and go and break into the guy's house to steal his coins. But he pulls something out of his pocket that Don wasn't prepared to see.
What time is it?
It's midnight.
I'm going out there now. I'll need the address.
What's that?
What?
That?
This gun?
Yes.
What does it look like?
A gun?
It is a gun.
I don't like it.
Don't look at it.
I'm serious.
So am I.
We don't need a gun, Teach.
I pray that we don't, Don.
We don't. Tell me why we need a gun.
It's not a question, do we need it? Need. Only that it makes me more comfortable, okay? It helps me to relax. So, God forbid, something inevitable occurs, and the choice is, and I'm saying, God forbid, it's either him or us.
Who?
The guy. I'm saying, God forbid, the guy or somebody comes in, he's got a knife, a cleaver from one of those magnetic boards.
Yeah.
With the 2 strips.
Yeah.
And whack. And somebody's bleeding to death. This is all. Merely a deterrent. All the preparation in the world does not mean a thing. The path some crazed lunatic sees you as an invasion of his personal domain. Guys go nuts, Don. You know this. Public officials, ex-murderers. All I'm saying, look out for your own.
I don't like the gun.
It's a personal thing, Don. A personal thing of mine. A silly personal thing. I just like to have it along. Is that so unreasonable?
I don't want it.
I'm not going without it.
Why do you want it?
Protection of me and my partner. Protection. Deterrence. We're only going around the corner for Pete's sake.
I don't want it with.
I can't step down on this, Don. I gotta have it with. The light of things as they are.
Why?
Because of the way things are. Hold on a second.
Fletcher?
Cops.
What are they doing?
Cruising.
They turned the corner?
Hold on. Yes. They have the right idea. Armed to the hilt. Sticks, mace, knives. Who knows what the heck they got? They have the right idea. Social customs break down. Next thing, everybody's lying in the gutter.
Oh, guys, that is powerful. Now, that was just one scene from American Buffalo, and we did sanitize it for you. So I have to remind you, please, it's recommended for ages 15 and above because the language is pretty adult. So please don't bring small children to this play. But it is the play that put David Mamet on the map. American Buffalo. John Dillon is the director. Neil Gant plays Teach. Garrett Gray is Bob. And G. Valmont Thomas is Don. You really want to see this play. It's presented by Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater Company. And again, it opens up on February 9th over at the Southwest Arts Center for Performing Arts. I did mention earlier, and I'll mention again, that I was one of the founding members of the board of this theater group and I'm serving on the board right now. But I love this theater company so much because of its diversity. And the comments that John Dillon made earlier about the importance of diversity in theater, if you'd like to hear that part of the interview, because you just got out of church and you missed the beginning of the show, you can listen to the podcast. I've just posted that information on the KISS website. That's www.kiss104fm.com. Whew, boy, that 2 hours went by quickly. Coming up next, my girl, Niecy Shaw. She's going to be here for the rest of the afternoon with great music, great conversation, and, of course, she's going to have some giveaways. And next week, you do not want to miss my show. Why? It's Super Bowl Sunday, the big game. And why should you listen to me? Well, I'll tell you why. I have 3 football players who played in a Super Bowl game. And they're going to be talking about a charity event that's happening that day that you can be a part of and meet lots of other NFL greats. One of the guys who's going to be on next Sunday played in the very first Super Bowl. So you know that's great history. And have you always wanted to meet a ref? Well, guess what? You will next Sunday. There are only 2 black referees in the NFL, and one of them lives right here in Atlanta, Jerome Boger. He will be here next Sunday, too. So that's it for me, and as I leave you, I'm going to remind you what my Mama Hattie always says, her little sweet 92-year-old self. It's what you do with what you have that makes you what you are. Don't make excuses, make work. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and stick around for Niecy. See you next week.